they are giving, saying that the draft is to entrench President Barrow. It's false, it's fallacious, it's a deceit. There is no clause in the draft that will or have an intention or seemingly entrenching a president or perpetuating a dictatorial or self-aggrandizement rule. It's not there. And in fact, the 1997 Constitution was here since 1997. And we all believe that some of the clauses in that and other laws present as we speak perpetuated dictatorship on the Jame and perpetuated all the heinous crime on the Jame and perpetuated all the human rights violations. That's what we say.
And Nyang Njie listened keenly as Rohi reported there, and at some point your face lit up, in great surprise, obviously, as Seedy Njie spoke there. I mean, have you ever heard him come after his, I call him his former idol, Yahya Jammeh, like he just did there?
Well, some philosophers were keen of saying politics is the second oldest profession apart from prostitution. But that notwithstanding, politics should be noble. Hearing Seedy Njie not only lambast, but really not put to test, but at least agree with overwhelming majority of Gambians then, pre-2016, that everything we were saying was true, yet still he defended it then. Now he is telling us that the 1997 Constitution brought dictatorial tendencies. And not only on the Jame,
exactly,
and not only dictatorial tendencies, but being practiced. So he lacked the moral legitimacy, in my opinion, in my view, to occupy not only the political space, but such an office in a transformative Gambia that we yearn for. He has no business in the business of building a new Gambia.
This is a question you probably were not prepared for. How much do you know about sickle cell?
Well, I have friends and I have families who suffer from this. Yes, extended family. And sometimes they have to go and be admitted in the hospital for a while to just get new transfusion. So it's not only debilitating, but it takes away the potential of an individual. And I do hope as a country we invest more, because just not because someone is bedridden all the time doesn't mean that they don't have a condition that needs special care.
And, these support groups, that form because of one condition or another, do you think they get enough support from the government? And if not, why? I mean, I can talk about the GFD, Gambia Federation of the Disabled, as a person with disability myself. I mean, we hardly get noticed. I mean,
yes, the why is the government don't bring in champions in the policy making decisions and matrices where policies are formulated. For instance, show me a physically challenged person, be it deaf, blind, or whatever, being mainstreamed into government at high levels. Well, we need champions.
They call us disabled. We are not able.
It's physically challenged. And, we need these people in high places so that they can be champions. Because what I don't feel, I cannot understand, but I may sympathize. But someone who feels will appreciate better. And it's the responsibility of state to mainstream these people in all our endeavors in building a country.
Nyang Njie is our guest this morning, and my conversation with him continues after another break, to remind you that Coffee Time on West Coast Radio. It's the only way we make money here on West Coast Radio, through advertising. So if you have a business, please advertise with us to ensure we continue producing the program on radio and also on YouTube. Nyang Njie is with us for the next half hour. Nyang, there's a number that is being, bandied around this morning on, all the newspaper front pages. 775.6 million. Some are saying 776, rounding it up to, the next whole number, $776 million. That's the amount of money Gambians in this diaspora sent to this country in 2024. Could we have used, the money in a much better way, that, it impacts our society more?
Well, I think that's a private arrangement, but the government could have created an environment where these remittances will go into public investments. And the way that can happen is for government to create instruments, is for government to create avenues. And if you look at Senegal now, they're about to create a digital bank. And this digital bank is to mobilize diaspora resources for public infrastructure projects. And they will make a dividend, but at the same time, the country will benefit. But if you look at the case of the Gambia, diaspora funds coming in, the inflows predominantly goes towards sustenance of family and construction. But now that's on the private side of consumption. We can change and make sure on government spending, we complement as a diaspora into the efforts of rebuilding our nation.
And how, is that done and done effectively?
Well,
by creating a bank, as Senegal is seeking to do, or what?
Not only a bank, but investment avenues. Investment avenues can be a diaspora bond, for example. And of recent, I've heard of the central bank going to the diaspora, especially the US. But I think sometimes we do things the wrong way. Yes, the government should be the underwriter of such instruments, but they should always get a private entity to come up with a prospectus. The prospectus will be what the diaspora will look into. Then they will see the investment vehicles and avenues available in this prospectus and what are the potential returns. Then this private company will now underwrite such instruments on behalf of, and the proceeds will go into the government through this private entity. And they become the guarantee, because government is not fully trusted. So no one wants to just take their hard-earned currency and just give it to government directly. But if there's an intermediary, it will change, and that will make the perception better.
You said the government was in the US meeting the diaspora. The diaspora has been there for a very long time, sending money to the Gambia all along. Why did it take the government so long to recognize that they could actually, tap into these huge resources that the diaspora have to fund some of their infrastructure undertakings?
Well, unfortunately, we have a government of advisors. This government has more advisors than any other government to date, not only in Gambia, but at least if you look at a Bissau or a Senegal. But now, this current government happens to have diaspora advisors or whatever. But we need to accept and agree on one thing. A lot of people are not cut out for the assignments they're given, either because of incompetence or they lack the skill set and the toolkit for that particular assignment given. And I'm not only stopping at the diaspora advisor, but generally all the advisors that this current president happens to have close to him. On his politics, he can choose whoever he wants. That's not my business. But in the development of this country, he needs advisors that are suited for the assignments he gives them.
We have to talk about the budget. There's been a lot of noise about the budget. First, it's a very huge budget. 59 billion is a lot of money. What do you think about the budget before we go into the nitty-gritty of it?
There's three problems with the budget. One is just respecting the constitutional requirement of presenting a budget. See, we have laws, and the laws must be respected because it's the law of the land. There is a time frame set to put forth a document to the parliament, and that has been reneged upon, and that in itself is an infraction. Now, if you look at the budget, it has grown significantly. And the reason it has grown, it's not unfortunate only, but I think it's misguided. 2017, we had a moratorium or a relax in terms of paying external debt. Now, instead of taking these funds, investing it and making a return on them for the time that when we start paying external debt again, we won't be too burdened. But instead, we used it to grow government spending, particularly in infrastructure. Now, late 2024 into 2025, we're now beginning to pay our Paris Club debt, London Club debt, and all other external debt that we have. That becomes a new burden to the country, including the contracts that we have for this public infrastructure that we have been embarked on all these years. So that has grown the government expenditure space. And do we have the revenue base? The answer is no. Are we milking a dead horse? Close to. How much can we continue to do that? And I just want the government to do one exercise. Go to the registrar of companies. See how many old companies are re-registering in the beginning of the year. That can tell you whether you're growing the economy or you're shrinking the economic space. As far as I see it, the economic space is shrinking. And for government, they need to know that the formal sector that we have been building all over these years are now moving back to the informal sector, because tax avoidance is not illegal. Tax evasion is illegal. But if you're creating bottle holes, impediments, people will go below the radar, and then the informal sector starts growing again instead of the formal sector.
Well, if just to minimize the tax we pay year in, year out, maybe we should downgrade from being a corporate institution company to, sole proprietorship. You pay less.
Yes, and precisely this is the point, and that's what I want the tax authorities to understand. And also, I think we really need to revisit GRA. When I say we need
Why? GRA is doing well.
No.
It's not doing well?
It's not about doing well. There's what you call tax collection efficiency. How much of every $1 we collect in taxes goes towards administering taxes? Number one. Number two, I feel GRA as an organization should be a very streamlined apex organization on the top that is going to manage two separate entities, custom and excise, inland revenue, which we call whatever in the Gambia. Inland revenue means internal taxes.
Income tax.
Income taxes. Yeah. So once we do these two things, we have institutions already, customs here, income tax here, and this apex body will be managing these two things. But for me, it's a bit conflicting when these two organizations have people embedded in them who are up there in the policy-making apex of what GRA should be. And this is not being malicious, but I think it has, organizations over time, they evolve. And once they evolve, we need to make sure they suit the place we live in. And going to the ports, trying to get a container out, we all know how things are in this country. So are we making the most of what we should as a country in terms of tax receipts or not? If the answer is no, then we don't have a problem. If the answer is yes, we need to revisit.
Just expand on that, going to the port and trying to get out a container thing.
Well, we know that the process is highly transactional in nature. Transactional meaning I just don't go to a bank, pay. I don't have to deal with A, B, and C individuals. That's not the case. I have to intermediate. And that intermediation comes at a price. And that price comes and add up once an importer brings product into this country. Corruption is not free. Someone always pays for the fat that an importer takes out and gives to anybody, be it at the port, be it at the GRA, be it at the hospital. And this is what we need to streamline. And streamlining these things is we try and have a process-driven environment rather than a discretionary environment where human interactions take part or make part of the decision-making.
Well, and since you mentioned the port. What do you think of the port concession agreement with Al Bayrak, or let's just say, a Turkish company?
We all know that in the last regime, Dubai Ports Wall came to the Gambia. And we had a very good opportunity to deal with Dubai Ports. And Dubai Ports would have been an ideal partner. Now we are partnering with someone. Do they have the capacity financially? Do they? I don't know. I'm just being honest.
Well, apparently it's a yes. I mean, the port authorities try to persuade us that this is the best offer on the table.
Yes, it depends on global benchmarks. Where does this company rank in the global scheme of things in moving and hauling containers around the world? I am of the view that if Gambia is not careful, the comparative and the little competitive advantage we got left vis-a-vis Senegal is going to just fizzle away. In Casamance, there's a deep sea port coming. In Dayan, there's a deep sea port coming. There is one in Funjun. So basically, if you look at the Mali trade, Gambia is out of competition because Senegal has given Mali options and also a dry port for that matter, making it easy for them to store their containers rather than paying for all of it to go to Mali at the same time. So with our port expansion, we not only needed a partner that's strategic, but a partner that can combat the economic gains that Senegal has made over Gambia over the years. But interests are different and divergent, so they know best because I'm not in that boardroom making decisions for the port.
Yeah, but you make it, sound like it's futile, going ahead with this arrangement.
I'm not saying it's futile, but Gambia need a big bang for the little that we have. We should stretch it. And when we want to stretch it, we should look for companies at the global scheme who can really impact, make a difference, and also redirect container traffic into the Gambia. And we know companies who are big enough globally. I think also it has to do with ambition as a country. If you look at our petroleum exploration endeavors over the years, we dealt quite a lot with cowboys rather than, yes, the BPs came in late, but if you look at Senegal and you look at the types of companies that came, it's a bit different. So all I'm just saying is the ambition of our country in terms of international investment should be bigger than a lot of briefcase businesses that come our way.
Break down the cowboy expression for us.
Well, there's what you call tropical gangsters, and tropical gangsters are briefcase business people who are global, out there. They know the types of countries they hit. They know the type of countries they visit. They know the type of countries they want to partner because they're willing to be strange bedfellows. And it's us, the Gambia, who should smell a rat when we see these types of businesses and say, this is not what we want for our country. But we need dedicated people who will do that.
We don't sell much, if anything more than groundnuts. And the groundnut trade season, seems to be running into trouble, already, because never in the history of, a trade season in this country did the season have to be suspended after a few weeks because there has to be, reconciliation of purchases. I think there's more to the headline that meets the eye. What do you think of, the groundnut sector and the way it's evolved, especially in recent years? Because you hear politicians saying we are producing less and less groundnuts every year.
Peter, naturally, I'm a disruptor. When I say I'm a disruptor, and also I am an iconoclast, I don't go with mainstream. The Americans are fond of saying peanuts is peanuts. Now, it's a shame that the world over it's starting to take a craze with medicinal marijuana. This is not to be used in country. Not an ounce of it will be used in country. But we have the environment whereby if a farmer can grow 10 kilos of high-grade medicinal marijuana. Each kilo, he can export it for a minimum of $3,500. So now, if we really want to take our farmers out of poverty, and yes, you are right, the tonnage has been going down year in, year out, because the sons of yesterday's farmers don't want to be today's farmers because they've seen how farming has impoverished their parents. Now we need a government that is not only, this has nothing to do with being liberal, it has everything to do with just being smart. Start greenhouse farming purposely for medicinal marijuana under high control supervision, whereby they grow, seal, export, and now a farmer can take his or her child to a university of his or her choice.
We will have to change the constitution then.
It doesn't matter. We need a will.
To legalize jamba.
No. See, here's a difference. Jamba, as you and I know it, is what people smoke. Medicinal marijuana is you grow, cut the flowers, put them in the right environment, sell them to pharmaceuticals to make medicines out of. And this,
so up to that point, it's not jamba per se.
No, and what you see, they're afraid of three things, and all of these three can be mitigated. When we grow it in the country, people are going to have access to it. But now I'm taking them back to economics 101. If local jamba is selling for $40,000 a kilo, and a farmer can make $3,500 a kilo on their produce, do you think they want to sell it locally? Someone offering $3,500 a kilo, and the most you can make in Gambia is $40,000. Will you sell your high grade in the Gambia? No. So I think it's more of tradition and being conservative. And the sad thing is, countries like Gambia always wait until everybody gets into this, and we want to get into it. And we could have had a first mover advantage because of the proximity of our country to Western Europe. We can package stuff here today, it's in Europe the same day, and the farmers get paid handsomely. So back to peanuts, we need to really look at our primary cash crop. Has our primary cash crop done well since the 70s? The answer is no. Why? Commercial arrangements between the SECOs, GGC, and the farmers. And now we're seeing what's happening in Senegal. Our farmers tend to cross the border. One, they're getting hard currency. Two, sometimes
the authorities would vehemently deny that.
But we have porous borders. Let's be honest with each other.
They would argue that, I mean, since we are offering a higher price than Senegal, no man in their right sense. You just said that if somebody is sending, is to get $40,000 for their tonnage, do you think they would sell for $40,000 locally? So Gambia cannot be offering, according to the argument of the authorities, a higher purchase price. And farmers still go and sell in Senegal.
It's not the purchase price alone in this instant. It's the nature of the transaction. When will I get my money? How?
True.
So because of what...
Which has posed a bigger problem this year than previous years.
The porousness of our borders makes people, especially the frontier and farmers, people who live on the borders, to just cross, sell, and take care of their business. So my take is, we need a national dialogue on three things: economic development of this country, how to grow the productive sectors, fisheries and agriculture. There should be a fisheries school in the Gambia. When I say school, I'm not talking about something like GTTI. It's not about the alphabet ABC, but hands-on experience. Why do we need this? We have an unemployment crisis, and the only two ways to solve our unemployment crisis outside of tourism is agriculture and fisheries. Today, the Radville farms. Mm-hmm. If Radville farms can make 2.53 million pounds a year in Gambia exporting stuff, we can replicate many Radville farms and organize Gambian youths with farm managers from Kenya, wherever, to manage them, and their produce will be sold outside, and the government can invest in them, and at some point these entities will repay the investment. And that's the way we can change the lives and livelihood of the Gambian youth. But mind you, Peter, we have a problem. The problem is the Gambian youth is very difficult to help because they don't even know what they want collectively. I'm sorry, and it's not an indictment on all Gambian youths, but our focus on where we need to take this country is somehow compromised by selfish, self-centered needs of a few who look at the overwhelming majority of Gambian youths as a flock, and they become the shepherd, and they're ushering them into the wilderness where it won't lead them to anything better.
Let me ask you then, because you were listening to our opening report on the NPP, setting up a youth wing, and of course that was where Seedy Njie made those extraordinary remarks against his one-time idol, Yaya Jammeh. I mean, the youths who have embraced, this idea of student wings of political parties, starting with the NPP. I mean, is that the right direction for the young people of this country, especially the students?
I love history, and when I go back to history, I love going back. We remember Buba Balde, we remember Mai Fati. These were student leaders, Alpha Robinson. And now there's an exploitation of student leaders by political parties, and not only NPP. We have to be fair. This is a national problem. But the saddest part is you have an overwhelming majority of people pushing their power for one or two people, and these people will now go to the executive. I have power behind me, and now they are rewarded, and that reward is personal to them, not the herd that's behind them. And we've seen this over and over and
so
over
the
in the
youths
Gambia.
are, if you like, a pawn in a game.
Exactly. And the reason why it's not changing is the exploitive nature of Gambian politics. Same as the Yai Compans. The Yai Compans are seen as influential people. They're given the bread and butter, but will it filter down to the neighborhoods? No. But them and their families and their close ranks enjoy. So politics in Gambia for the longest have been highly exploitative. And if we want to change it, we need leaders who are conscientious. But for them to be conscientious, they need to have three guiding principles. One is of religion and spirituality. The second one is of a high moral code. And thirdly, they must have a little bit of conscience. Because
This is interesting. How could religion and spirituality, help change our declining fortunes for us?
Well, a human being, we're all animals unless and until we rise above a certain thing. And spirituality and religion tends to tame and guide you. When I say spirituality and religion, I'm not talking about just the physical exercise of bowing, praying.
The cosmetics of it.
It's the inner soul of the human being to believe in what they do. Morally, no one should guide you but your moral compass. And thirdly, your conscience is the inner being of who you are. And this is what's lacking. And many of us walking the streets were empty carcasses because we have no sentiments or feelings about the wrongs that we're doing, and we know it, and we stand. Look at Seedy Njie. You can stand comfortably and say certain things. You can ride in a beautiful Pajero on the state's expense, knowing who you are and how detrimental you have been to the greater good of society, and you feel no less bad about it. And that is a judgment that you should have for yourself.
He's a convert now.
There's nothing like a convert.
Even though he did promise that, Barrow would only be sworn into office over his dead body.
They're not converts. They're called convenient apologists. A convert is someone who has seen the light and got out of the dark. A convenient apologist is someone who has seen an opportunity and want to go after that opportunity again and reshape and remold themselves to suit that opportunity. And this is the problem of Gambian politics, and this is the problem that most young people who are influential are using against the flock that's behind them. So they're not shepherding the young people to where they should take them.
We should be rounding up now. And let me just announce here that tomorrow I should be having in the studio the Gambia Immigration Department to deal with the letter we had from America about the waiting times for passport renewals. We will also be talking to a delegation from Wisconsin trying to do some yeah, I suppose entrepreneurship link-ups here in the Gambia. Just going back to the budget again, the government describes it as a near balanced budget. Why do you think they are describing it this way?
A balanced budget is
It's a
where
yeah.
revenues equals to expenditure or expenditure equals to revenue. That is economics 101. So a near balanced budget, bless their hearts. But I know for a fact that if I use historical, empirical information, the government of the Gambia has presented budgets all over the years since 2017, and for all the time, we go for supplementary appropriation. So our budget hasn't been just an estimate, but it has been a figure that moves as time goes on, even within the budget execution cycle.
Okay. On a final note, economically speaking, what do you expect 2025 to be for the average Gambian?
Well, for the Gambian economy to prosper, production needs to go up. Inflows needs to, when I say inflows, tourism receipts need to go up, and that will put a little bit pressure. It will at least dampen the pressure on the dalasi, and that is the first thing we need to fight on, to make sure that we not only have a stable dalasi, but we have a dalasi that can help reduce our import bill. Then the next step is, are Gambians in a position to pay for goods and service based on the environment they're living in? Well, I haven't seen any economic visibility or light at the end of the tunnel. And I do hope we need to have an economic revisit. And the revisit is not about GDP numbers. It's not about economic statistics. Professor Adesina of the African Development Bank said, we don't eat GDP. So don't use those as, oh, we're doing good. The depreciation of the dollar is slowing. GDP is this. Inflation is this.
The usual matrices.
Look at the bread and butter potential of an average parent putting food on the table. And that is when an economy happens to have a human face. And we need a human face behind the Gambian economy.